It's already one of the world's poorest countries. For Niger, the daily struggles of the country's poor show the delicate balance between limited resources and one of the highest birth rates on the planet. Rabi Dari Diallo is a retired teacher in Agadez.
In a class where there are, for example, 50 pupils or 60 or even more than 100 in the same classroom, the teacher won't be able to manage the class and teach them so that they can learn something. Before, we wouldn't have more than 23 in a class, between 15 and 23, which means we can easily manage this number of children.
Education is one of many issues facing a world awaiting the birth of its 7 billionth resident, expected according to the United Nations math sometime next week. Dr. Babatunde Asatomehin, Executive Director of the UN Population Fund, is calling the milestone a call to action.
We should invest in health and education of the world's 1.8 billion young people and make them entrepreneurs who foster sustainable development. This will yield enormous returns in economic growth for generations to come.
The population hit 6 million in 1998, and reports estimate the population could hit 10 billion by the end of the century. Deborah Gimbera, Reuters.
Hello everyone, welcome to Global Government News. Today is Wednesday, October 26, 2011, and I'm Darko. This is part one of this news bulletin. This is my website, ggnonline.com. Also on YouTube, I have a channel with a bunch of playlists, basically, and it's DDarko 2012. I have a poll up here you can check. There's 5 days left. Do you believe entertainers such as Beyonce, Gaga, Britney Spears, all the Madonna are aware of the pharaonic Illuminati symbology in their performance/ritual? So far, 85% say yes, they are aware. Hopefully, I'll have time to get into Madonna. She's been in the news. Like I said, the ritual will be on, well, I don't know the exact date, but it's going to be in February for the Super Bowl. And she'll be carrying out the mass ritual. Madonna, that is. She was basically appointed. And so now you're seeing news of her. Basically, she's in the news, is what I'm saying. So now they're planting seeds. Oh, she got a rich brother, and oh, there was another thing too that she was in the news for. And hopefully, I can have time to get to that. That's building up for the big ritual. Okay, so here you can put in your email if you want to receive updates for GGN. Besides that, I'm going to keep moving here, and this is going to be eugenics, this first video, because I haven't had time to cover it in the last one. So I have a lot of articles to get through in this one. Please stick with me. All the links for these articles will be in YouTube's video description, headlines and links, so go check them out. World's population to reach 7 billion this month, so bad humans are procreating and doing what the eugenicists don't want. The world's population is due to reach 7 billion October 31st, and the world will end, of course, right? That's what they tell us. So you just saw some propaganda, and of course this is going in all the little mainstream news wires on that. Population 7 billion. Of course, the global governing body is right there with their solution, sets out challenges. And of course, their solution, a major UN report has set out the challenges facing humanity a few days before the world's population is expected to reach 7 billion. And it goes in, it says a report calls for a change of focus, no longer asking, are we too many, right? Because there's just implying that we are too many. Let's not ask whether, too many, if there's too many people, or if, too many people are bad. Let's just go ahead and assume that it is, and instead concentrate on making the world better. And then that means instead focus and concentrate on getting rid of all of these people. How are we going to do this? Well, nobody wants the simple, happy solutions wrapped up in a box with a nice red bow on it. No, they don't. They want to talk about this stuff where they go into mostly Africa, and you always wonder about Africa. I'm going to keep moving here because I'll get to it. But, what's up with Africa? How come they can't do it? And you see all those students in schools and that, and really, the students should what? Those students should be on the farm. They should be working with their parents and their families, and they don't need to go and get education and re-education and indoctrinated into the system, right? To be good slaves, to be good tax slaves. No, they should be with their families. They should be self-sustainable, like tribes and families have been doing for millions of years. Aboriginals still do it in Australia, and look at what they're working with. Hardly any water, hardly any food, and they seem to do it. And I'm sure that these people in Africa are able to do it as well. But no, they want to do what? They have to say, oh, there's too many of them, and they're now, see, we can't teach them because there's too many of them. Well, they shouldn't be there in the first place, right? They shouldn't be there in that brainwashing camp to begin with. They should be out cultivating and farming and doing whatever it is that they do, crafts or whatever. So I'm going to move on here, and look at this. Paul Ehrlich, a prophet of global population doom, who is gloomier than ever. And this is a real article, and it says the population of Earth has doubled since Paul Ehrlich first warned the world that there would be too many humans. And of course, who decides what is too many? Well, them, the experts, of course, right? The social engineers, the eugenicists. 3.5 billion people later, he is more pessimistic than ever, estimating there is only 10% chance of avoiding a collapse of global civilization. Now they're talking about not enough resources and that, but that's a bunch of bullshit, right? Because like I said, if everybody was doing their own thing and not having to rely on this system of going through education, getting whatever, and getting your little gold stamp and then paying your taxes, and living in a rigged economy, we wouldn't have problems with scarcity of resources. I'm not going to go too far into this because you already know what I'm going to go into. What is it? And it goes in there and he starts talking about what? Famine, drought, poverty, conflict. This is all created by, like I said, the same asshole that I referred to or aligned with Satan, Zbigniew Brzezinski, is caused by his own little minions, buddies, right, that sit in these round tables. They think of ideas of how to cause these things like famines, like in Somalia. You think they're in Somalia killing 50 people a day, the CIA, and now Kenya? And the UN, do you think they're in there killing all those people because of a famine? No, the famine was just a reason to go in there to start killing people, right, and have regime change. And the droughts, and that's caused by weather modification, a lot of it. They're manipulating the weather. Conflicts, obviously, we all know that the conflicts are created to build up the military-industrial complex for regime changes for many of reasons, right? And of course, they go into emerging diseases. Well, these are released by the laboratories that are, of course, what? Created for eugenics reasons, for depopulation. No matter what excuse, too many people or whatever, it's all bullshit. It's all a fucking lie. It's all coercion to get you to think and feel guilty. And this is what they all schemed up in the Club of Rome, right? That we have to make people think that they are the cause of every natural disaster and everything, famine, all that, and conflict, so that they can see themselves as the problem, right? And then if you can tie people to the cause of climate problems and stuff like that, well, then you can declare war on the humans. Then humans are the problem and not Mother Nature. Health survey sparks Big Brother fears. So, of course, fears of Big Brother coming again. As if it's not here, 2 participants in the federal government's compulsory Australian health survey say the experience has been deeply intrusive and stressful violation of their privacy. Go in there and check that out. I have a lot to get to, guys. It says here, rationing, states limiting hospital stays for Medicaid patients. Sorry about that stuttering, but it says here, more and more states are sharply limiting hospital stays for Medicaid patients in an effort to contain costs, USA reported. And so Hawaii plans to cut Medicaid hospital coverage to 10 days a year in April, the fewest of any states. So, and of course, that's part of the bill that he's passing right now. Is it's going to limit the budget bill or whatever it is. It's going to actually limit Medicare for elderly. So double whammy. Fetal gene screening comes to market. So it says here until last week, scrutinizing a fetus's DNA for indications of genetic abnormalities. Meant tapping into the mother's womb with a needle. Now there's a test that you can use a small sample of the mother's blood. The blood, right? Because it's all about the bloodlines. And that's what they're getting into to see if you're going to have a bad slave, right? And you don't want to have that. So you can go in there and see, it says here, there's every reason to think that in the future you'll be able to extract an enormous amount of information from that sequencing data. And where is this leading, folks? It's leading to where eventually, if you don't have a, quote, favorable DNA sequence, you will not procreate. Period. China's one-child rule turns into a time bomb. Of course, they knew that this was going to happen, the social engineers, that is. And of course, the West pays and supports China in this endeavor, this great work. It says here, China's one-child policy has prevented almost 500 million births, but has turned into a demographic time bomb as population ages and storing up huge economic and social problems for the country. And this, of course, China is the trial run, so when they're talking about mass sterilization, forced abortions, and then baby girls being abandoned and killed, this is all stuff that is, coming over here, so... I think we all saw the infamous video of the little toddler female that was basically run over and like 10 people just walked right past her without helping. That's the desensification of females in that culture. It says here, men are lost, confused, insecure, and that's good to know, says therapists. And it says here, more men seeking help to deal with problems, feeling lost, confused, and scared. Well, of course, they're being programmed. They're being engineered to not be what men are supposed to be. And, and then what happens? If they either get violent and they lash out, or they just shut down, or they do this. They go to the therapist and they tell them how they should be thinking. And they're talking about Australia's sex-segregated workforce is leaving more men insecure and seeking help. This is very, very interesting, with more men likely than women to be worried about providing for the future. Well, it's the men that are supposed to be doing it. You can go and say I'm a chauvinist, male chauvinist pig, but I'm not. I'm just a traditionalist, and if I could go back and have a family like that, I would. The way it's called economic warfare and, of course, social warfare, they can manipulate the environment to get a desired result. Now, like everything else, they know that this is going to happen, that men are going to feel like they are not the breadwinners because they can't. They can't be a breadwinner. And of course, that ties back to Africa with the women, with the children at home, and said they get the children into the schools, blah, blah, blah. Women stages her baby's birth at performance art. So it says here that she's given birth to her first child inside a New York City art gallery. And basically it goes in here and says that baby X was born at 10:17. So very artistic there. Then it says here BPA during pregnancy may cause behavior problems in girls. So they didn't know that. They didn't know it was going to cause behavioral problems in children. And that was what, of course, picked out in the 50s. States ready test for kindergarten. So preparing and administer mandatory school readiness test to children as young as 4 in an effort to win millions of dollars of federal government money. And of course, the woman who was in charge at one time during the Reagan administration of the Federal Department of Education said that actually the purpose is not to increase math and science and literacy skills. It's actually to make them more dumb. And of course, I've covered this before, where reports are coming out where children now can't even write their own name. They can't read. The math and science, nothing. But the biggest thing is what this woman said. The big goal here is to break down the child, to change the way they think, so that they are not individuals, to make them collective, and those that are leaders to beat it out of them. And they've succeeded. Florida school scrambles to retrieve prizes with racy images. School administration hoping to reward students for their A+ fundraising efforts at a Florida elementary school unwillingly gave them X-rated gifts, officials said. And of course, they said unwittingly. No, there was much thought process put into that. Trust me. China's sex ed dolls kindergarten class uses realistic dolls to teach sex education, and this is, of course, what they're getting at, right? States ready test for kindergarten. They want to get them into that fucking camp as soon as possible to undo everything that is in them, even genetically, yes, I will even say genetically, is in them to be like a man, to lash out when they're not being the breadwinners, when they can't provide, when they're put in a corner like that. It's all natural. It's the natural order of things that I've talked about. It says here, State Department spends $70,000 on Obama books, and I wonder if those are going to go into the schools, almost like Mein Kampf. Veteran teacher arrested after choking 6-year-old girl with her own sweater and dragging her across the. And another reason to get your child into preschool and get them in there and get them sex education and get them all this stuff as soon as possible, teacher here in Texas arrested for allegedly having sex with 5 students. So maybe it's like back to the old ancient Greece. Maybe that's what they want. I don't know. But Denise Richards says she regrets getting breast implants, and she says that basically it's not a good influence on her children. She almost wishes that she didn't get him. Says here, soda consumption linked to teen violence study finds. And of course I knew about this. What? Understanding soft drink consumption among female adolescents using the theory of planned behavior. Ooh, planned behavior. That study was done in what, 2000, 2002? Flu vaccine protects pregnant women's baby and does not cause miscarriage. Oh, is that right? Is that right? So maybe you better give them a double dose because they're pregnant. Flu shots less effective on obese patients. Well, you better double up then, double down. And CDC votes to extend HPV vaccine to boys. This is GGN. Thank